Hello. Have you been the victim of multiple abuses over multiple decades, sometimes in different forms? Are you confused as to why this keeps happening? What is it about me that this keeps happening to me over and over? You may often ask yourself. This video is going to explain what this phenomenon is that we call revictimization. My name's Julie Poole. I'm a hypnotherapist and I've been working with many clients over many years, nearly 17 years now, that have helped them to find the peace that they seek through various forms of releasing them from their past. Over the last 5 years, I've worked with many clients who have suffered a history of abuse, often going back to childhood. The symptoms that they come to me with are often to do with anxiety, panic attacks, post-traumatic stress syndrome, nightmares, irritability, reactivity, negativity, depression, and a whole host of other things. I've worked with so many clients with these issues over the years successfully that I wrote a book about it specifically for victims and survivors of former abuse. And very often this isn't former, it's still happening. It may be happening in a different way. You may no longer be being sexually abused or physically abused, but you may find that you're drawn repeatedly in a cycle to abusive relationships, psychological abuse, mind games, toxic relationships. Why me? You may often ask yourself. Well, this is called revictimization, and it's so prevalent in former victims and survivors of abuse that scientists have actually studied it. So sexual revictimization occurs when a survivor of sexual abuse is re-abused again, and very often again, and very often again. In fact, survivors of childhood sexual abuse are up to 11 times more likely to be abused again in adulthood. In addition to this, there is growing evidence that repeated traumatic experiences like sexual abuse in childhood may be more likely than a single event to trigger revictimization. Psychologists and psychiatrists suggest that the pattern of revictimization is due to our radar, our danger radar, being out of kilter. It's also due to the underlying cognitive beliefs, these are our thoughts and beliefs, that suggest that we're not good enough, that we deserve what we get, that we deserve to be abused. Another underlying factor is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Another factor of revictimization is desensitization. This is where previous abuse may actually have desensitized us to real threats and to increase the likelihood that the person will respond to perceived danger. Basically, what happens is our danger radar gets shut down. We don't notice when we're at risk the way that somebody who hasn't been abused does. This desensitization results in increasing difficulties with recognizing alarm signals. So, when we are survivors of abuse, we are more likely to not notice the danger signals. And perpetrators out there notice that within us. Now, another factor is dissociation. Now, dissociation is where we remove ourselves from the event. We basically don't notice what's going on around us. We distract ourselves. We disassociate ourselves. Many survivors have said to me, I remember leaving my body, or I remember looking down and seeing what was happening to me. I wasn't there. I wasn't in my body. This is dissociation, and it happens to many people when they go through a traumatic event. Now, when we disassociate, not only do we remove ourselves from the event, we kind of go within ourselves. And we can often create a fantasy of what we think is real rather than what actually is real. So we have learned this way, it's a coping mechanism to deal with trauma. We've learned this way of shutting off from what's actually happening and going into a fantasy world within our own head and within our own mind, which we can actually believe. So this is why then when we're older and we end up in an abusive or toxic relationship, that we're continually excusing the bad behavior, the person, we're saying they didn't really mean it, it must have been me, I think it was in my mind, I think I might have caused it, I think I provoked it, and we are disassociating ourselves from the behavior which is toxic and abusive. Now, with this disassociation as well, it's a way where we remove ourselves from the event so that we cannot feel what's going on. It's a way of protecting our feelings. Disassociation is one of the many ways we've learned to cope, and it strongly links into how we can be drawn into future abusive relationships. We just don't see the warning signs or the signals. We see what we want to see instead. We've become blinded to the reality. Now, in addition to these contributory factors that I've already discussed, we can have the difficulties that many survivors have with mental health problems, depression, anxiety, not trusting their own instincts, not trusting themselves, not knowing what is right or wrong. That sounds a bit strange, but when we've been trained to behave in a certain way, to say nothing when we're being abused, as a child, we've learned to shut up and put up. It's kind of like the training that happens with a circus animal. You just jump through the hoops, you don't question them. We've learned to do this in childhood, and we continue to play this out in adulthood. Now, the evidence shows that even when we think we're healed, at times of vulnerability, we can very easily slip into old patterns. Now, that's okay, we can't stop that from happening, but what we can do is be aware of it. So when we're in times of high vulnerability, perhaps after a divorce or a death or something that's really triggered our vulnerability, it's very easy to slip back into that old neediness and that old abusive pattern. So just become aware of it, be aware that right now I'm feeling quite vulnerable, I need to be extra careful because my judgment might be a little bit skewed right now. So to combat this, we need to put in extra layers of protection at these times of vulnerability. Really be checking in with ourselves, really be extra risk assessing. Is this person genuine? Can I trust them? Actually, I'm not quite sure at the moment, so I'm going to step back. It's all about protecting yourself. Now, many of my clients, I'll give you some examples here. If we've been sexually abused in childhood, we're very often, that will play out again in adulthood. We're drawn into abusive relationships because we don't see those signals. We've been trained to receive the abuse and take it. Now, we're also aligned with the energy of abuse. We are aligned with being a victim. So we continually keep playing out being a victim. What we have to do is heal from this so that we release that victim part of us. We release the trauma from within us. We change the energy that we're vibrating on. We change our patterns, and we start to align ourselves with our strength, our independence. One of my clients said to me that she had two examples where she was put in a difficult situation where a customer of hers was acting inappropriately with her, and she didn't recognize it. She felt very uncomfortable, and we were discussing it, and I said to her, you see, somebody who hadn't been abused would have recognized those signals straight away and shut it down and said, no, don't do that, I'm uncomfortable with that, that's inappropriate. But because she had been abused in childhood, she just went with the discomfort and ignored it because that's what she had been trained to do as a child. And that's what many of us do. And it's learning to break that. It's learning to say, no, I can challenge this. This is inappropriate behavior. I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to listen to those signals and I'm going to act upon them. So I want you to know that revictimization is something quite normal for survivors of abuse. It isn't your fault. You've been drawn into those patterns and you keep playing them out. But now that you know about them, you can start to make the changes that you need to make to break those patterns. You are no longer a victim. You are a survivor. You can let go of the victim mentality. You are no longer needing to be that trained, responsive person who does as they're told even when it's uncomfortable. You can start to find your voice and you can say no. Be aware of your danger radar, that it's being turned down or shut off, and start to allow it to come back. Look at the signals around you and start noticing the signals of when you feel uncomfortable. That is your danger radar. You closed it down when you were little because you had to. You don't have to close it down anymore. Now, if you would like some help with breaking those patterns, you can work with me. I work with all of my clients via Skype or FaceTime or telephone. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, but if you want to start breaking those patterns and changing that old situation of those toxic, painful relationships or those dangerous situations that you find yourself in, then please get in touch. All the details are in the description box below this video. You may also be interested in my book. So this is a book, Moving Past the Past. It's for victims and survivors of childhood sexual abuse, but any form of sexual abuse, and in fact any abuse, this will help you to understand it and break those patterns too. It's very easy to read. It's full of other people's stories of what they've been through and how they broke their patterns. There are lots of exercises in there too for you to break the patterns yourself. So there's lots of different options. You'll find this book, Moving Past the Past, on my website, and again the link is below. If you'd like it in paperback, you'll find it on Amazon worldwide. I hope this has been useful for you. If you found this video useful, you'll find also other videos on sexual abuse on my page on this YouTube channel. And if you find them helpful and would like to donate to this channel and support it, there is a donate button through PayPal if you would like to do that. And it would be wonderful if you would like and share and subscribe so that other people can find out about this too. You'll also see in the description box the links to my Facebook hypnotherapy page, which has got lots more information too. I hope you found this useful, and on my website you'll find a fact sheet, an information sheet that goes with this subject of revictimization, which has more information on it. Or you can get the book, and the revictimization is in chapter 7 with a lot more information so you can really understand this. Okay, I hope this has been helpful for you. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye.